I'm very delighted to be here this morning, and I work with Madam Amani, who has spoken before, for the African Union in the field of infrastructure. We all now agree that the aid era impoverished Africa, and that what Africa needs today is trade and investment. This is what has been accepted. But then the constraint here are two major factors. As Madam Amani said, the Africa Free Trade Area Agreement came into effect on a few days ago. It has been recognized that Africa trades very little with itself. The inter-African trade is only about 15%, whereas the inter-European trade is 70%. In Asia, it is 50%. But then how does Africa trade with itself? Or what are the constraints? One is infrastructure. It's a major constraint to inter-African trade. Madam Sylvie here has told you she comes from Central African Republic, a stone's throw away from Kenya. But how does Kenya trade with Central African Republic? You have to get a ship that will want to go around the Cape, up the West African coast, up to Douala in Cameroon, and then by road to Bangui in Central African Republic. The French are earlier there than you. So we're talking now of trying to connect Africa. And the African Union has come up with infrastructure projects. The inter-African highways, 6 major ones, Cape to Cairo, to Tripoli to the Cape, Dakar, N'Djamena to Djibouti, and then Dakar, Lagos, Mombasa in East Africa. Then there is Trans-African Beltway, the railway line from the port of Lamu in Kenya, through Juba in South Sudan, Bangui in Central African Republic, to the Cameroonian port of Douala, to create a Trans-African highway, railway line that links the Atlantic Ocean and the Indian Ocean and opens up these landlocked countries in the interior of the continent. That will make the trade easier within the continent. The other constraint is energy. Energy, because most of the African countries export many commodities. They export agricultural produce and minerals, in terms of oil and other solid minerals. There is need, and this is recognized in the continent, that there's need for value addition of these raw materials that are abundant in the continent. Africa is the richest continent on earth in terms of resources. So this is an area where Africa also requires investment in order to add value to these resources which are abundant in the continent before they are exported to the rest of the world. And here is where we need Russian investments. First, energy, because most of African countries are energy deficient. Some of our countries have oil, like Angola, Nigeria, Egypt, and so on, but others don't. That here we have, for example, a huge hydroelectric potential in the Congo River called the Inga Dam, with the potential to produce 110,000 megawatts of power. This cannot be developed as a national project by the DRC. So it requires to be developed as an African Union project. And investment is required in order to be able to tap this potential and interconnect the continent. We have the Southern African Power Pool, the Eastern African Power Pool, the Northern African Power Pool, the Central and the Western African Power Pool, which could all be connected. This is also another area where there could be opportunity for cooperation between Africa and Russia. Thank you. I raise my case.
That was wonderful. Can I just have a round of applause for a fantastic panel, experts and brilliance, beautiful comments. Thank you so much.
for you.